You're listening to Big Ray's Garage Grind.
I want to bring awareness and my voice to something that's meaningful and purposeful, more than just who's the best football player or who's the best football team.
The intersection between life, football, and mental health.
When you need help and you ask for help, you're operating from a position of power. When you need help and you don't ask for help, that's the weakness.
Now, here's your host, Seahawks legend, Ray Roberts.
What is up, fam? This is Big Ray's Garage Grind Mental Health Edition, brought to you by the Mindful Therapy Group and in collaboration here with the Seattle Seahawks. And, man, it's been a minute since we've been in the studio again, but there's a lot that's happened. I went on a 8-day vacation to Puerto Vallarta, and it was hot as all get out. Like, I needed some mental health. I needed some therapy just to get through the heat and all the sweat. But it was a great time, had a good time there. And then the Seahawks, bounced back from a 3-game losing streak to win a football game. So that was really cool to be able to see that work. We've had a trade at the linebacker position. So a lot of things that have happened since our last show. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time today kind of talking about, we do a lot of talk about the actual person who is in crisis and mental health crisis, and what are the resources and how to handle things and the way to think about it and the approach to take, all those different types of things. The whole it's okay to not be okay, all that kind of stuff. And I've been wanting to get to this topic for a little bit, just around what the idea of what it is to take care of someone. If you're the caregiver or the wife or the child or the significant other that's taking care of the person that is, or the husband that is taking care of the person that is suffering, or having a mental health crisis. And I kind of labeled this whole talk as getting lost in it all, because it is really easy to do that. And so one of the things that was really interesting in all the stuff that has happened since we last recorded is that yesterday I got to be the keynote speaker at Evergreen Hospital at their Evergreen Health Foundation's fundraiser, raising money for their hospice care program. And it's a community hospital. The hospice care program is a community service, and so it needs the community to help sponsor and raise money and provide all the services and things. And so one of the things I wanted to do was bring a personalized hospice care, because a lot of times when we think of systems or resources and things, especially when it comes to a place you got to leave your house to go to, we just think of the physical places that it's in. So the hospital or hospice care, or wherever this place that even if you're getting therapy, you're usually going to a place, and so it's easy to kind of forget about the people in the place that make it all work. And so what I tried to do yesterday was really paint the picture of what it's like to be a hospice care provider. And so as I was doing it, it made me think about more deeply about what it must be like, or what it is like, I have to say, because I've experienced it, to have a loved one that is suffering with their mental health and knowing what to do. The cool thing is that I got a chance, when people really stand up for you and do, go out of their way to kind of help you do things and show up for you, and which was the title of my talk yesterday, was the power of showing up. But when people show up for you, man, you don't always get a chance to thank them. And so yesterday was pretty cool, because there were 2 people in the audience that I got to thank in front of maybe 200 or 300 people, and one of them was Sandy Gregory, who used to work here for the Seahawks. She was one of the original employees here. And then my ex-wife, Beth Roberts. Both of them really helped me get through this mental health place, the struggle that I was in, so that I can get to the help. So Beth helped me fill out all the documentation and kept my head above water. And then Sandy did a great job of vetting out all the different places that I could go to, and helping being like my go-between for the contact with the NFL, because I was just in a place where I couldn't manage any of that stuff. I think once I tried to take documents to the hospital to get them filled out so that I could take my leave of absence for work, and I think I had to go to the hospital 4 different times because I kept forgetting to take one document, or I'd forget to have them sign one piece of it. I would get frustrated because I didn't understand what the doctor wrote in, so I'd have to call. And so I think this one stretch of road between Woodinville and the Evergreen Hospital, I think I got 2 speeding tickets because I was flying back and forth trying to get all this paperwork figured out, and I was getting frustrated, and I was dealing with the depression and the anxiety and the panic. So just the idea of getting out of the house was working against me, and I really needed someone to kind of step in and just take charge of it and get me to where I needed to go. And Beth and Sandy were those people for me, and so. It was cool yesterday at this event to be able to have both of them in attendance and then have them both stand, and I could thank them for how they showed up for me. And so it just kind of reiterates this idea even more that this connection between hospice care, which is kind of like just a paid caregiver, and our loved ones that have to help us through some of these difficult times. They essentially become our caregivers. And so what I did yesterday is I just wanted to highlight some of the attributes that it takes to be a caregiver in that situation, whether you're the hospice care person or you're the husband or the wife or the kids. In my story, and I've told it in the first couple episodes of this though, but man, like my kids knew that I was struggling, and I don't think they knew what to do, and I didn't expect them to know what to do, but I didn't know how to let them know that I was having a hard time. My ex-wife, knew that the things I was dealing with, and so I'd have to call her and tell her, like, hey, I can't come see the kids tonight because I'm not feeling good or whatever. And then she had to make up a story to tell the kids why I couldn't show up. I don't know what she told them, but she had to tell them something as to why Dad wasn't showing up that night. And so then you start thinking about the burden that she has to carry to try to come up with a story or to try to manage what the kids are thinking or feeling. And then also, even though Beth and I are divorced, we're really good friends. And so, I'm sure that she was trying to make sure and hoping that I wasn't going to do something crazy or, what have you. And so that creates a lot of stress and stuff on the person that is having to help you navigate your mental health crisis. And so some of these attributes that the hospice care folks show up to work with every day is some of the same attributes that these people that are supporting you, helping you, trying to help you manage your anxiety or stress or depression or your crisis, trying to help you get to the resources, helping you get to your appointments, all these different kinds of things. Some of these attributes those people still share. And so I have my notes here from my talk, and I was just going to mention a few of them. And I will say that one of them is this idea around protection and support. And it takes, like the hospice care people are focusing on comfort and dignity, whereas your loved one that is trying to work with you through the crisis is trying to focus on, keeping you in a place where you're not going to hurt yourself, and then also trying to help you have hope, and then also trying to help you find help. And so that protection and support is two attributes that your loved ones are displaying. And a lot of times, the difference is that, with hospice care, it's a career, it's a job. You have that thing about you about showing up for other people, but there's a career that you're getting paid to do. It doesn't make it easier, but you're getting paid to do it. It's a job that you have. Whereas if you're a loved one, sometimes, man, you haven't signed up for any of it, but you have to respond to it because this is someone that you care about. This is someone that you don't want to see struggling. And so you have to find it within yourself somehow, some way to go like, how can I show up for this person and then help them? And unfortunately, a lot of times you end up almost displaying some of the same characteristics as the person that is going through the mental health crisis. And so you have to be aware of that. And so, protection and support are, a couple things that your loved ones are displaying and have in their, that are showing up for you. And then this idea around dedication and selflessness. Like, obviously, if it's your child or your husband, or your wife, or someone that you love, a family member, you're dedicated to wanting them to live their best lives. And in order to do that in this situation, man, there has to be a whole lot of selflessness, which means to me that that this situation is something greater than yourself. That you're saying, even with all the stuff that I'm going through, whether wherever it is that I'm in the relationship spectrum, whether it's husband, wife, significant other, or child, or grandparent, or friend, or whatever it is, you're saying I'm kind of putting down part of who I am and things I have to take care of in order to take care of this person and to help this person. So that requires a lot of selflessness, and whether it's any type of caregiving, whether it's been a doctor, whether it's hospice care, or if you're a loved one that's supporting someone that's in, it takes selflessness to show up for someone that way, knowing that at the end of it, like, you may have your own issues, or you may not even get recognized for the work that you've done, because sometimes when I've been in the situation, so there's points of it when your mindset is, well, if you're my child, you should do these things. You should do these things for me. If I'm your dad, you're probably expecting me to do these, to do certain things for you. And so you put some unreal expectations on the people around you, and not taking into consideration, what ups and downs that they're going through in their own lives, and then the difficulty it is for them to see their loved one struggling. And so sometimes you gotta, as the person that is in crisis, you have to kind of find a place to understand and recognize that these people that are trying to help are doing it out of their selflessness and out of their love and dedication of you. And so I know it's hard to do it. Like, in the middle of my junk, there's no way I would have been able to have this type of clarity to be able to say, hey, thank you for doing this and thank you for doing that and all these other kind of things. But when you get to the other side of it, you have to find a way to go back and acknowledge what those people have done for you, because I don't want to say it's unfair, because life happens and they can show up how they want to show up. But, man, I would much rather have people in my corner like Sandy and Beth than to not have them. And so it was important for me to find a way to thank them. So their dedication and selflessness to me was pretty incredible. And then this other one around resilience and adaptability, like when you're suffering with in the throes of these mental health crises, man, minute to minute, hour to hour, moment to moment, day to day, second to second, things can change. Like, there were moments where I felt like I was on top of the world, and then there were moments where I felt like the world was on top of me. There were times when I was super excited to go see my kids or to get out the house, and then in that same moment, I couldn't even turn the doorknob to get out of the door. And so, like, things are changing all the time. Sometimes I would be on a phone call, for work, and I'm super excited about something we're doing, and then as soon as the call would end, I was curled up on the couch crying. And so, like, things are just changing every second, every minute, every moment. And so the people that are supporting you, man, they got to have the resilience to go like, okay, this is not wearing me out. I'm going to keep showing up. And then they have to have the adaptability to go like, well, how do I respond to this? How do I respond to Ray calling me 1 minute, super excited about coming and seeing the kids and maybe playing some board games or something, and then 30 seconds later calling me crying, can't get out the door, don't know what to do, all these different kinds of things. And so Beth and then eventually my kids had to learn to respond in the moment that way. And it's not something that I'm super excited about or that I want to brag about from on my end, but I do want to brag about it on their end, because they showed up like that. It was unwavering the way they showed up. They never once said, "Hey, Dad, like, you really got to get through this because you're killing me." Like, they never said that. They were just like, "Hey, man, like, whatever you need to get to the next minute, the next moment, next second, next day, like, whatever you need, we're gonna get you there." And so then it kind of fast forwards me to when I actually went to get help, and I got to after the Impact program in Michigan. And right before we get to that, let me read this, our little sponsorship piece here. Mindful Therapy Group, based in the Pacific Northwest, is a diverse group of qualified mental health providers offering both in-person and virtual care. Whether it's talk therapy or medication management, you can book your first visit within 1 week. Visit mindfultherapygroup.com to start your journey to better mental health today. And just like I always say, man, Derek and Jessica, they are just amazing people. And we've created like a really cool friendship. I talk to Derek probably every other day, whether he's on the road or he's here in town. We stay connected that way. Great people, great organization, and they're doing great things. So if you need help, or even if you're in a therapist and you're looking for a way to get your practice started, the Mindful Therapy Group can help you with that too. So reach out to that group for help with your mental health services, as well as if you're trying to get your own practice started, being a therapist. A good group of people to know. But getting back to the story, when I went to the After the Impact program in Manchester, Michigan, I'm not gonna lie, like when you're in the middle of your stuff, you feel like you're the only person on the universe that is suffering this way. And then when you go to that place, you think it has to be the worst suffering in the history of the world. Like, I'm curled up on the couch. I can't get out of the house. I'm missing time with my kids. I'm really isolating myself, not really enjoying a life the way I should. Like, even, the work I do with the Seahawks, and you guys have heard me say this before, and NASA, my guy who's over here to my left, and he's the producer on our broadcast team. Like, he knows how many times I was coming in hot, because a lot of those times, and I didn't tell him at the time, I was having to talk myself all the way to the studio or all the way to the stadium, just by saying, get to the door, open the door, go down the steps. You guys have heard me say it before. Get in the car, get to the stop sign, get to the freeway, get to the next exit. Like, I had to really talk myself all the way to the games and be able to do the work that we have to do. So I felt like there can't be another person on the face of the earth that is feeling this, that is going through this type of stuff. But when I got to the After the Impact program, man, I couldn't have been further from the truth. Not that it made me minimize what I was going through, but it just shed a different light on what I was going through. And so when I get there, I meet dudes there was this one guy who would just stare out the window the entire time. And I didn't know what was going on with him. I didn't know his story. But then when I found out his story, this was a dude that was like on the verge of committing suicide, and his wife found him writing apology letters to her and his kids one night, and then luckily found this program to get him to. So you think about that. You think about a loved one finding you in the middle of the night because you hadn't come to bed, and so they're walking through the house trying to find you. And they find you writing letters saying, I'm sorry. And then he gets to go off and get surrounded by 24-hour care, therapy, safe place, all this kind of stuff. And then your loved one has to carry all of that and hold on to all of that. And they're back at home trying to be mom or husband or show up in life the way they have to show up with this on their mind. And so it just got me thinking while I was there. I was thinking about my kids. The time I was there, I think I was there for my birthday and there was one other celebration that was going on that I missed because I was there. And then I came home the day before Father's Day because I didn't want to miss Father's Day because my youngest son, Price, was taking a recruiting trip to Idaho, and it was his first recruiting trip, and I didn't want to miss it because that's something we had in common. And so I was able to kind of rally myself and be ready for that. But when I went to leave the After the Impact program, you sit down with the therapist and you sit down with these representatives from the NFL, and they pepper you with these questions, and they want to know, what your experience was like and this, that, and the other thing. And then they talk to the therapist about, how did he engage the program and, what was the progress like? And they're trying to determine a few different things. One, if the program is effective, and then two, if you are in a place where they feel comfortable sending you home. Because if they don't feel comfortable sending you home, they will strongly suggest that you stay for a couple more weeks. So the original commitment is only like 2 weeks. And then they can determine if you needed to be there for 30 days, and then they can determine if you need to be there any longer. And so when we got through the whole thing, and they asked me, like, well, what can we do to improve the program? And the first thing that came to my mind was, what about the loved ones? Like, what about them? Like, my kids are at home.
wondering what I'm doing on a daily basis. How am I doing? Am I going to come back better? Beth and Sandy, are checking in on me to see how things are going. I had put a lot of strain and stress on them to kind of help me get to where I was. And then, and Beth for even a longer period of time, I started having these depressive type of episodes the year I retired from the NFL. And so Beth has been dealing with this for a very, very long time. And then the anxiety and panic part would kind of grow on top of it. So she has dealt with it and seen it for a long time. And I know that it had some negative impact on her. And so I asked them well, what about the loved ones? Like what happens to them? What type of support? There was no program to even, maybe have a weekend where they get to come in and sit with their loved one or with the player and talk through what they're learning or, understand some of what they're going through, what the therapy is like, but then also have some time for them to sit with therapists and find their own rhythm and their coping mechanisms and figuring out how do they deal with it and not be traumatized, and have PTSD, they see me, act in a certain way and then all of a sudden they go oh, he's back to where he was or whatever it is. So to me, it became important to at least have the conversation around, and I guess this is more of an acknowledgement of those people than it is answers or solutions. But it's more of a just saying when you are in crisis, obviously it's hard to see the work that people are putting in around you to try to mitigate what is happening and try to help you get to a place where you're not harming yourself or causing further damage to whatever it is that you're a part of, and those people go unseen. And if it was up to me, and I've had several conversations with the people that ran the After the Impact program, trying to figure out how do we create programming and resources and support for the families. The NFL in my lifetime, from when I came into the NFL to now, have done a tremendous job creating wraparound resources for their players, current players and retired players. There's actually so many resources that it's sometimes hard to navigate to figure out which one you should use because some of them cancel out others. And so you got to understand what's the best option for your situation. But in none of that are places for the loved ones. And they are just as much part of the team, part of your journey, part of your success, as the coach, your position coach, as the agent that negotiates your contracts, as your teammates. They're every bit part of the team. But then when you get to situations like this, there really is no place for them to go to find help. That I felt obviously they can go out and find their own help, but I just feel at least in my situation, and I don't know about other leagues or other jobs and things like that, but I just felt the NFL should have a program that addresses what your loved ones are going through, because at the end of the day, it takes an emotional toll on them too. They can start to have, you think about if you're working your 9-to-5 job and you're grinding every day, and then you come home and your loved one is curled up on the couch and not been communicative and not talking to people and isolating and crying and all this stuff, and then you have to deal with that. And if you have kids, you're having to be mom or dad to the kids, or you're the kids that are having to take care. You're an adult kid trying to take care of your adult parents or something. So it's it takes an emotional toll, because that's on top of all the other things that your life is bringing to you, that you're having to find a way to show up for this loved one. And so when I think about it, I guess if you want to give some of the solutions to that would be similar to what you would be telling the loved one to do, that reach out for help, surround yourself with a team of people that you can talk to, and then but then it's also important to set boundaries too, so that I know my ex-wife, I couldn't have 24-hour access to her, even though I wanted to call her every single day, every single minute, and be like, and just kind of getting her all up in arms. But she had to create a boundary where I just couldn't have that, because it was taking a toll on her. And so it's important that you set boundaries that way so that you can find time for yourself to decompress, whether it's a focus group. I mean, not a focus group. Maybe it's like a specialized group or a group of like others that are dealing with people that are going through a mental health crisis. Support group is what I was trying to come with. There's different support groups at different hospitals and different organizations you can find, and you can go sit with people that are in the same situation you are, and you can have someone that can understand, or you can find other ways to create boundaries or other coping mechanisms for yourself. And then also you may just have to go get some, get a therapist too to help you deal with whatever it is that you're feeling, because it's easy in those situations to feel like you're not that you're not helping at all, that you don't see it improving. And so then there's a certain amount of guilt that you would probably carry around that. Like, man, I'm not doing enough, or why isn't what I'm doing helping, and so you have to deal with that. And so I would say in those situations, like, man, you need a lot of self-compassion. There's only so much you can do. You can choose to do as much or as little as you want. And that you should always know that too, is you're not obligated to do any of it, even though it feels like an obligation. But when you do it, just make sure you create those boundaries and have some self-compassion. So understand that you don't have the answers to it all, that it's not necessarily your problem to solve. But if you're choosing to help, you're trying to help them get to the services and things that they need so that they can get on with their lives and overcome some of this stuff. And then also, like, I've met loved ones before, and we talk about someone that they love having this mental health crisis, and they almost talk about it in a whisper because they don't want people to know. And so there's like a stigma around it. So they don't want their friends to know. They don't want their maybe some of their other family members to know. And so there's this stigma around mental health that kind of keeps people keeping it in the dark. And so if you're keeping the whole conversation in the dark, then you're also living in the dark, and you're having to go through ways to come up with excuses why you can't do certain things, or why you can't do something because the loved one's mental health crisis is flared up. And so that kind of living in the dark and living with that stigma too also has its own issues as well. And so it's important to kind of build a network of trusting people that you can talk to. I think one of the coolest things that for me, and I say this just because I think everybody should have this, no matter what you're doing, no matter what the situation is, whether you're happy as all get out or sad as all get out or anywhere in between, is that, man, I came out of this after the Impact program with these two dudes that were in the program with me, that, man, we are as close as we could possibly be because we have a shared journey. And one lives in Texas, the other one lives in California. I live here in Seattle, but we probably text each other every other day. We check in with each other. We ask for prayer. We try to get on a Zoom call at least once a month so we can actually see each other. But just having that network of people, having that kind of social network of people, it just kind of helps me when I'm in a place where maybe I don't necessarily want to have to explain what I'm feeling or what I'm going through to someone, because these dudes just there's just certain things I can say, certain things that they can say that I just know, okay, this is how I need to show up for this person today, or they know how to show up for me. So for an example, for me, if all I got to do is say, man, I'm Uber eating a lot, and they know that means that I'm off my square, because I try to cook my own food and be healthy and all that kind of stuff. And when I'm Uber eating, that means I'm not doing that. And so then they know exactly what to do. They don't, beat me up over that. They just start going, hey, are you getting your walks in? Are you getting to the little vegetable stand up the road? Like they know all the different things. What is your routine like? Are you getting your workouts in? All these different things. So they know exactly what to go to when they hear those key phrases that tell them, like, yeah, I'm a little bit out of sync. And so it's really good that they know me that well. And so I would encourage the caregivers or the loved ones who are having to deal with someone in a mental health crisis to create the same type of support network. So you have people that are not judging, what you're feeling. They're not judging your loved one. They're just simply there to understand that, like, you're in this moment and they know exactly what to do and how to show up for you in those moments. And then I would just encourage that person to be open, even with their loved one that is in crisis, about when in the appropriate time how you've been impacted by it, and why it's important that you both get the help that you need, so that this doesn't become like a snowball effect. And as this crisis is rolling downhill, it's just chewing up everybody in its path. And so at some point you want to stop that snowball effect so it doesn't impact everybody. And part of that is having the loved one say in a moment of clarity, like, hey, this is what's going on, and to kind of shed light on why a person needs to get the help, or why they need to dig deeper into the therapy. Because I kind of resisted therapy for a while because I had some bad experiences with therapy. And so it was I didn't know what I was going to do. But Beth and Sandy kept encouraging me to take the step and give it another try, and I'm so glad that they did. And then I would also say that both the loved one and they're just like me, like when I'm like in the throes of anxiety or panic or depression and I'm trying to work my way out of it, you have to count the small victories. And so it's the same for the caregivers and the loved ones, as you have to count small victories. I know that a lot of times as when you're trying to help, you want to find that magic pill that you're going to drop in the water, and when it dissolves, everything is going to be fine. And a lot of times it takes a lot of those magic pills. And so you have to count all the small victories. If your loved one is able to get through the day and not be impacted by their crisis, if they're able to get out of the bed, if they're able to get out the door, if they're able to, sometimes it impacts your diet. So if you're able to eat, if you're able to sleep, all those little things, you have to count all those little victories. And so as the support of that, you too count all your small victories. Like if you're able to communicate with your loved one, if you're able to have a conversation that brings you clarity, if you're able to find a support group, if you're able to make headway on helping this person get down the road. So like for Beth, Beth was very good with the paperwork and all this other kind of stuff, but we didn't quite know where to go. And so then Beth said, well, I'm going to reach out to Sandy. And so, Beth didn't have the answer for where I needed to go, but she found a small victory in reaching out to Sandy, because then Sandy had all the information about all the different things that are available for former players and the places you can go and all that kind of stuff. So all of those things were like small victories that added up to me being able to get to where I needed to go. And so it's important as a caregiver or a loved one of someone that is in crisis that you count your small victories too. Because the thing is, you don't want to be overwhelmed by the situation, and then you are in the throes of depression and stress and anxiety and panic and all those kinds of things. And so it's setting the boundaries, being open about what's going on, having a network of friends and people that you can talk to, reaching out for having your own therapist if that's something you need. All those things are things you can do as a loved one to kind of manage your own the way you've been impacted by someone that's in a mental health crisis, because it's not easy, man. I promise you. Like I can't imagine what my kids or what Beth was going through when I was going through it, because it was just so different from who I am. Like they've never known me to be the dude that kind of closes up in the house and doesn't do anything and doesn't talk to anybody. And I mean, if you know me, I'm gonna talk to anybody. Like I said, I love meeting people, and I was not doing any of those types of things. And then I was calling them in crisis and crying and stuff all the time. And so, and at the time when you're in the middle of it, man, you're not really thinking about the impact it's having on the people that you're reaching out to. You're just thinking about the darkness that you're in. And so I think when I was able to get removed from that darkness and have clarity of my own, I could really see how it was impacting the people around me. And so it was important to me to voice that to the NFL. And I don't know that they came up with any solutions, but I do know that I keep having a conversation with everybody in the NFL offices that I can get in touch with about trying to find some services that family members and loved ones that are working with some of these players that have mental health crisis can go to, because it does become a family thing, and even when, like, regardless of how you end up having to retire, whether it's injury related or you're just not good enough related, or you just know it's your time, you've been there forever, whether it's 3 years, 13 years, or 17 years. Like, at some point you go, like, this is enough. You're not the only one retiring. You're the one that's not showing up at that job anymore, but everyone that's connected to you, like in your immediate family that you spend time with on a daily basis, those people are retiring from that too. There's a lifestyle that they're used to. There's a rhythm that they're used to. There's a you and a personality that you present when you're in those spaces that they're used to, and a lot of that goes away, and so it has an impact. And then you throw on top of that you leave, with some type of mental health crisis, then that multiplies that. Or, like with some of this CTE stuff that is, information and research around that kind of stuff. If those types of things are popping up, and you're having to, as a loved one, help your person deal with all of that when they're in the middle of crisis. Because I will say this, with all of the resources that the NFL offers, sometimes it's hard to navigate because you're trying to navigate it in crisis. And when you have to flip through 4 or 5 different pages or links and whatever, you get lost in all of that, and then you just give up on it. And so if there was one thing I would say to people that have services like that, or other organizations and companies that have mental health services for their employees, man, learn it when you have clarity. Learn all the different, even write the steps down of, if this happens, I'm calling this person, I'm reaching out to that organization, I'm clicking on this link, write down the phone numbers, because when you're in the middle of it, man, it is so hard to stay focused and stay clear. And then it gets all, you get frustrated with the people that are trying to help you. And so I would say for all involved, whatever services are available, man, make sure that you know exactly what you're going to do before you get into the crisis. Because once in the crisis, it can be hard. It's hard to see 2 feet in front of you. So that would be some advice I would give to everybody. And so, like I said, this was a part of a talk that I had yesterday at the Evergreen Health Foundation's fundraiser, and it just got me thinking about this whole caregiver space that we, at some point in our lives, we all kind of live in that space for somebody, for the most part. And so it's important that as the caregiver, that you find space, create boundaries, find someone to talk to, have therapy of your own, and then also I would encourage you to, as best you can, to always keep an eye on hope, because when you lose hope, that's when it goes down for everybody. And sometimes your loved one needs someone that can carry the hope, and then you need to hope for yourself. And so I would encourage you to stay hopeful, count the small victories, build a support group, encourage your openness with the person that you're having to take care of. And then as I close here, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all those people that have showed up in the lives of other people who are suffering. Because at the end of the day, man, like, the thing to me that cuts through politics, it cuts through race, it cuts through class, it cuts through identity, it cuts through any of the other issues and topics that you want to talk about, is when you can see the humanity of another person. And so when you show up for the humanity of someone, none of that stuff matters. And to me, that's what should matter most. And so when you're a caregiver, when you're a loved one showing up for someone who is in crisis, you are seeing the humanness of who this person is. And so that is what's allowing you to show up in those moments and be strong when they're weak. And then I think it's important then that you get acknowledged for that, because that's a choice that you make. Sometimes you're kind of forced into it, but even when it feels like you have no other choice but to do it, it's still a choice because you can choose not to do it. And so I just want to elevate those people and acknowledge those people that have had to do that in their lifetime, no matter what the situation is or how it is that they're having to show up. Man, I did this whole deep dive on this whole concept of the power of showing up, and power is can be defined as being able to or having the ability to, and then the concept of showing up means that you're showing up with with intentionality, with purpose and intentionality. So the power of showing up is the ability to show up with purpose and intentionality for the benefit of someone else. And so it's a very selfless thing to do. It's a very thing that can be lonely when you're doing it, and you can be lost in it all, like I said. And so I just wanted to take this particular episode to say to those people that showed up for me, including the broadcast team, NASA, Paul, Bumpus, B. Walt, Turbo, Babineau, Rabel, Wyman, Jen Mueller. A lot of these people know some of the struggles I was going through, and they just never wavered, and they were always there for me. NASA had to be when it comes to that adaptability piece. Man, NASA was like freaking Barry Sanders out there, because there were some times where it was just like, man, I don't know what Ray's doing, but we're gonna make it work. And so I just wanted you never get to say thank you enough to people like that, and so that's why I wanted to do this episode, just to bring attention to that and to acknowledge those people that do that type of work and show up in the lives of people like that. So with that being said, our 3 different things that we end the show with all the time. Number 1, it's okay to not be okay. Number 2, if you are in the midst of a mental health crisis, you or your loved ones can reach out to your medical provider for help and assistance and direction. And then number 3, if you need help and you ask for help, you're operating from a position of power. So Big Ray from Big Ray's Garage Grind Mental Health Edition. Looking forward to having a few more of these over the next few weeks. Hope you guys tune in. Hope you're liking them. Please comment, what you like, what you don't like. If you have any success stories, all those types of things, reach out. If you need help, reach out to the Mindful Therapy Group. I'm not a therapist, so I can't help you with those things, but I can point you in the right direction. So once again, Big Ray's Garage Grind Mental Health Edition. Peace. And I'm out.